My name is Leslie Daigle, and I'm the Chief Technical Officer and Director of the Internet Integrity Program at the Global Cyber Alliance.
What inspired you to pursue a career in technology, and how has mentorship, sponsorship, or community helped to shape your career journey?
Yeah, so I got into technology because I always liked pushing buttons and seeing things happen. So, I mean, like when I was a kid, I had a programmable calculator and it was super fun to sit there and program it to do like squares and area and, volume and all this fun stuff. And it really never occurred to me, even maybe all the way through at least undergrad, that maybe it was odd that I was a woman doing this sort of thing. It's just sort of like it was just kind of fun. When I got into my professional career, it started seeming like, hey, this is maybe not a normal career path for a woman. And that's when I think having a community really helped. And the community I think of when I say that really is actually the Internet Engineering Task Force community. Because in the 1990s, when I first started participating in meetings, it really was a meritocracy. So they really didn't care what you looked like or what you sounded like. If you were, saying sensible things, you were heard. And your work progressed, and you had people to share ideas with and move things forward, which is really really supportive. And it helps having that kind of a community to just be yourself in and be accepted in was massively important in sort of building up the courage, if you will, to carry on.
What was the most challenging thing you had to overcome in your journey to executive leadership?
Yeah, so I'm going to give a two-part answer to that one. The first most challenging thing was being made an executive literally within 2 years of having become a manager, which was before I even finished school. So it was really too much too soon. It was a small startup company. We were all young and bright and excited. And all of a sudden I was the VP of research. It's like, oh my goodness, what does this mean? And that was a real challenge because, promoting somebody into a slot when they don't know what the job is and they don't have people around them in the business that they can learn from is pretty challenging. So a number of us were given executive titles and we really weren't executives, although we sort of figured it out as we went along. So then the second part of the answer is when I, moved to a larger corporation in a bigger environment and then tried to make progress in that context, I think the biggest challenge has always been I like to focus on getting the work done and not playing the games, or at least I perceive it as playing games. And in large corporations, if you're not, sending up the right signals at the right time, then you just get overlooked. So I would say that being sort of practically oriented has been a bit of a challenge. So I've gravitated towards smaller environments where the thing that actually matters is getting stuff done.
How have you witnessed instances where qualified women were overlooked for leadership positions, and what actions can be taken at an organizational level to ensure fair and unbiased selection processes?
Yeah, so that one, I'm not sure in any of the instances I can think of where, I think somebody ought to have been picked, but they were overlooked. I wasn't a firsthand witness. So, it's always possible to say, well, because of this or because of that. But I have friends who've been involved in selection processes who've sort of watched it from the inside, and they've said, if you don't actually have a list of qualified women on your desk, you're not going to think of them. So it really is they just don't, women or, quieter people or people who don't look just exactly like you, um, maybe don't spring to mind when you are looking for candidates for a given position. And I think that's one of the hardest challenges to overcome because it's almost invisible. And it's not helped by AI selection processes if we're only going to train them on people who look just exactly like us. So um, I don't know. I think maybe it's a question of being clear of having a list of, again, having a list of listing what the qualifications requirements are, and then listing out, here are people that we know in the world that meet these requirements.
Yeah, that makes total sense. We at Women to Code, we encourage our members, even if they don't have all of the qualifications, right? Even if they have like 60% of the qualifications, to apply for things anyway.
It's good advice because
Mhm.
oftentimes actually the actual list of qualifications that gets posted is, a grab bag of all the things you would really want. And sometimes you're really happy with if it's the right person and they've got that 60% of the qualifications, you can see how it will fit into your team and that will be fine. So I applaud the advice.
The last question I have for you is what is something people can do today to invest in women in tech and inspire inclusion?
So I think, the biggest thing for me, as I said, was I got sort of halfway into the career before I realized that women's liberation, et cetera, wasn't just a thing in the history books. It was still very much a practical reality. Um, so I think some of the practical things that can be done include just making sure that when you have conversations and, when you do work things, you do them in a way that is inclusive to everybody. So you don't necessarily just go and say, we're going to have our quarterly meeting, right as part of the Super Bowl. Maybe not everybody's so interested in the Super Bowl, or don't say that, don't just use sports analogies, or um, don't assume that everybody wants to go to a bar and relax over a drink. So I guess just don't make assumptions. Make sure that you are offering as neutral an environment as possible and then encouraging people to flourish.